Thank you so much for being with us for this Chautauqua Theater Company Theater Chat. Wonderful to see familiar faces. And it's such a pleasure. My name is Lily Wolf. I'm with Chautauqua Theater Company. And it's such a pleasure to introduce some new faces to you today. We have with us the team of Best for Baby, which is our upcoming new play workshop at Chautauqua Theater Company Commission. I'm going to introduce down the line so you know who all is here, and then I'll tell you just a little bit more about them. So we have Oliver Butler, the director, with us. We have Sharon Rothstein, the playwright, Liz Frankel, the dramaturg, and Kavan Harvey, who is the assistant director on this project and our Future Now directing fellow. So let me tell you a little bit more about them. I'm going to start, of course, with the playwright. Sharon Rothstein is an award-winning playwright and television writer. Her newest play, Bad Books, is a National New Play Network Rolling World Premiere play and winner of the David Goldman Prize for New American Plays. Bad Books was first produced by Florida Studio Theater, and then Roundhouse Theater, Williamstown Theater, and the Curious Theater Company in Denver, Colorado. And I'm sure we have representatives from some of those cities with us today. And it will be produced at other theaters across America this year. Sharon's Helen Hayes Award-nominated musical adaptation of the beloved film Hester Street was produced at Washington, D.C.'s Theater J in spring 2024. Her play By the Water was first produced by Manhattan Theater Club in Ars Nova and was the recipient of the American Theater Critics Association Francesca Primus Prize. Her plays have been produced at Williamstown Theater Festival. Give me a woot woot if any of y'all have been to these places. Williamstown Theater Festival, Arena Stage, Ricardo Theater Center, Ensemble Studio Theater, as well as Raven Theater and Northlight Theater in Chicago. Her audio drama, Deep Fake, is available on Audible. Hope you guys get to enjoy that. Sharon is currently a writer and a co-executive producer on CBS's new show, Einstein. She's also written for Suits LA, a spin-off of the hit legal drama Suits, for which she wrote and produced 5 seasons. Sharon was a writer and co-executive producer on AMC's Orphan Black Echoes, and has developed shows for Apple, AMC, and Bravo. She holds an MFA in dramatic writing from NYU and a master's degree from Hunter College in public health. That's going to become relevant in just a moment. She teaches television writing at NYU and Columbia University and lives in Brooklyn with husband and children and cats and laundry. Let me tell you a little bit about Best for Baby's director, Oliver Butler. Here we go. Oliver is a theater director who grew up in New England and is now based also in Brooklyn. Laundry, cats, husband? He directed the critically acclaimed Broadway premiere of Heidi Schreck's What the Constitution Means to Me, that certainly gets a woo-woo from me, which was nominated for numerous awards, including a Tony and the Pulitzer, for which Oliver was awarded an Obie for his direction. A film version is now streaming on Amazon Prime, so enjoy checking that out as well if you haven't already. He directed the off-Broadway premiere of A Knock on the Roof, can you help me with this pronunciation, by
Howard Ibrahim.
Thank you so much, at New York Theater Workshop, following a sold-out world premiere at the Edinburgh Fringe, where it won 5 major awards, including a Fringe First from The Scotsman. It won many other awards. I'm kind of trying to fast forward here a little bit. A Lucille Lockel Award, Outstanding Solo Performance, Outer Critics Circle Award, and then it transferred to the Royal Court in London. Most recent directing credits include Hester Street by Sharon Rothstein. I feel like that's the most important one to tell you about. The off-Broadway premiere of A Bright New Boise by Samuel D. Hunter's Signature Theater Company. Tornado Tastes Like Aluminium Sting by Harmon Ott. The New York City premiere of Will Eno's Gannett at Theater for a New Audience. Well, lots of Will Eno, all over the place. Yale Repertory Theater. The Amateurs at the Vineyard Theater. Tom Paine, based on Nothing, also by Will Eno. Starring Rainn Wilson at the Geffen Playhouse. And then the return of Tom Paine to New York, which starred Michael C. Hall at the Signature Theater Company. I'm gonna fast forward, he's directed everything everywhere, including in Australia, just all over the place. Yeah, that's what I was about to say. He probably wants you to know the most that he's a hiker, a long-distance hiker, and you should definitely ask him about that in the Q&A. Now I'm gonna move on to Liz Frankel. Liz Frankel is here for her 2nd season at Chautauqua Theater Company. She was here last year with the stage new play workshop of Falcon Girls by Hilary Bettis, dramaturging that product. I've been in rehearsal room, corporate play. Dramaturging that product. And let me tell you a little bit more about Liz's career. She spent nearly a decade as a director of new work at Houston's Alley Theater, where she founded its Alley All New Festival in 2016. Liz moved to Houston after 9 years at New York's Public Theater, where she helped to start the Emerging Writers Group. Before joining the Public, Liz worked at Waxman Williams Entertainment, Miramax Films, and Manhattan Theater Club. Freelance dramaturgy assignments have taken Liz to the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, Williamstown Theater Festival, the Colorado New Play Summit, the Ojai Playwrights Conference, the Playwrights Center, and the Eugene O'Neill Theater Center. She holds a BA from Colby College in Maine. And of course we have with us Kavan Harvey, our wonderful assistant director on this project and Future Now directing fellow. He's a director, actor, producer based in New York City and in Philadelphia, PA. He's directed at New Circle Theater, Philly Arts Collective, Brown University, UPenn, and is associate directed at Roundabout, Trinity Rep, and Civic Ensemble. He's a member of the LCT Directors Lab, Lincoln Center Theater Directors Lab, I should say, Roundabout Directors Group, and Beth Morrison Projects Producer Academy. He's a graduate of Cornell University and the Brown University Trinity Rep MFA program in acting and directing. Please welcome them to our theater club. Thank you all so much for being here. They literally were whisked by me in my vehicle from their rehearsal and have barely had a second to breathe since they arrived. So it's so wonderful to be here with you and to just ground for a minute and to talk about the work that they're doing so beautifully on our grounds right now. I'm wondering if we could start sharing with you. Can you tell us the birth story of this play, please? And it's a Chautauqua Theater Company commission, of course, but what was the real seed? How did you decide what you were going to write about?
Hi. I'll try to be the right amount. Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for being fans of theater. We need you and we love you. Thank you. So I was on a plane reading The New Yorker, and I flipped to an article about Johnson & Johnson and the litigation around talc powder causing ovarian cancer. And as Lily said, I have a master's in public health. I haven't used it very much, but I am really deeply interested in public health issues. And the article, I knew in the background what was going on about talc litigation, but I didn't really know. And the article was just incredible to me because I realized, oh, this is an epic story that has actually been happening from the 1960s on. And really, it's got all the things I like to write about. It's got some political shenanigans, legal shenanigans, corporate stuff, which feeds kind of one part of my brain. I did write for Suits for 5 years. I'm really good at writing a scene where someone throws a file on a desk, changes everything. You never open it. So it really fed that part of my brain, but then also there is this very deep personal health side of it and how it's affecting families and patients and doctors and women. I mean, it has not just affected women, but it has primarily affected women. And I think by the time I was off that plane, I was deep in, and I knew that this was the next thing I wanted to write, and I got really lucky. This doesn't happen very much in life, but I'd been talking to Jade. I'd known Jade for a while. We had worked on a project in New York a few years past, and she had just come on board here and contacted me and said, we're looking to commission a writer. Do you have anything that you think would be good for us? And I told her this idea, just kind of thinking most producers would just run. Because I was like, I want want it to be a big play. It's gonna be a political play. It's gonna span so many decades, and it's also stylistically a total departure from me. It's nothing I've ever done before. And Jade was incredible. Was like, it sounds great. Let's do it. And what a gift, what an absolute gift. And so I started writing. Last year I got to be here for a week just to write and work with a couple incredible conservatory actors just to hear some stuff out loud. And that was really formative. And so that takes us to now. And I would say that with most of my plays, I'm always worried that by the time the thing gets in front of people, the issue will have been solved, the thing will be over. And I certainly felt when I was writing this play, well, wherever we are with this litigation, I'm sure it'll just be done by the time of the play. But no, it's still very, very much ongoing. So, yeah, so that's how we ended here.
Thank you. And Oliver and Sharon, this is not your first time working together, as we learned in my epic monologue. You have worked together before. What draws you to each other as artists? And Oliver, if we can also seed into that question, you are specifically a new work director. And can you tell us a little bit about why?
Yes, I can tell you about why. I guess I'll start with Sharon. Yeah, that's the right distance, that's right.
How does it sound?
I like to say I don't work on plays, or I don't pick plays, I pick artists. To me, the process of both working with something the way it is and trying to co-imagine what it actually wants to be is something I really love. And for some reason, I don't know if I was raised this way, born this way, my brain really sort of thrives in that. I don't really believe in something is done. Maybe it's how I look at myself as a soul and a person in the world, is I'm not done. That comes with some pain because I feel like I spent most of my life waiting to be better. I'll have some experience and suddenly everything will be clear and I won't be the same, have the same collection of sort of annoyances that frustrate me every day, and then I'll just have the epiphany. But I found that epiphany doesn't really, that clear one thing changes it all epiphany doesn't happen. It's just day-to-day work. However, working with someone like Sharon, she also has this incredible sense of story and plays that are about something, are about something very deep, or political, or meaningful, or transformative. But she's also this really hilarious goofball. There's a childishness to our play and the way we talk about stuff. I think we have a similar sense of humor and a both awareness and acceptance of our own dorkiness in the world. But because of that, I feel really sort of cool, and safe to propose ideas that seem really possibly dumb, but might actually be profoundly dumb, which is one of my favorite things. So it's about a sense of safety, and some of that is just chemistry with a person. I work with Will Eno as well, or I have a lot, and one thing I learned working with him that is also true with Sharon is, I would turn to him and say why does this character say this, looking for an answer? And he would be like, yeah, why does the character say that? As if someone else wrote it. And I worked with playwrights for another way, who are 6-page email to me about why, and then I feel well, okay, so this is just me trying to discern what is someone already knows. And I don't dig that as a process, and I dig it as a play. And because Sharon's approach has, and who knows whether it was learned or she was born that way or whatever, her approach has a curiosity and a little bit of mischief about what things could possibly be, which is sort of how I think a person is made, and how great poetry is made. So that, I would say that, it is that, and we recognize that early, we make each other laugh, we respect each other's ideas. She can also turn out a scene, it isn't all theoretical stuff like what I'm saying. It's like she can actually then turn it into a scene where people say things and do things, which I think that is possibly also what we're both good at, is sort of this like, there's a shamanistic quality to what we do. You both have to live in the like infinite four-dimensional unknown, and also, where does the actor take a drink of water and say the line in time? And so by doing both of those things and pivoting between those, I just feel very safe. So that's why I like working with Sharon. Long answer, but.
Wow. I like working with Oliver because he uses words like shamanistic. We've known each other a long time. We've been in the same theater circles a long time, but we only really got to work together a few years ago, starting on Hester Street, and we just vibe. We are speaking the same language. We have the same sense of humor. Oliver is insanely smart, like really smart, which is just such a gift for me, because I know if he's thinking something's not working, it's not working. And if he's thinking something is working but it's not quite there, I know he is right. I can trust that. It's just, that is such a gift. And I've also been given the gift of working with Liz Frankel, who is brilliant. So I'm just surrounded by brilliance, which is, wow. So many times in life we're surrounded by the opposite of brilliance. But yeah, we both are on the same page about energy, I think, the energy a play needs. I'm a big believer that why do we go to theater versus just turning on a screen? We go because energy. We want to connect, and we want to be in the room where it happens, right? And we want to be entertained. I think those are important things. Oliver, that's immediately in his direction, along with the heart and the humor and humanity, which is just crucial. So I just took over your answer.
No, it was a co-answer. Yeah, we're modeling how we work. Was there another part of that question that you asked?
Why you love new plays? But I feel
Yeah,
that's popular too.
so listen, I have been thinking, I feel like now I'm doing my type 5. My mother is an actor, my father was an actor. I was here in 1990 when my mother, Pamela Peyton Wright, was doing Road to Mecca. So I've been around theater my whole life. When my mother died in 2019, I read her bio, and her bio was Pamela Peyton Wright has worked in all of the nation's great theaters in the works of practically everyone. That was in her bio, which I was like, whoa, baller mom, that is a mic drop. She was 5'4" and lived in the clouds, and also was sharp as hell. I worked with her once, and it was called A Nightmare, and one of the greatest experiences of my life. She used to be like, when I'm working on a new play, you're not gonna like this. When I'm working on a new play, I like to take a globe, and wherever the rehearsals are happening, I like the playwright to be on the opposite side. So anyway, imperfect. That is not how I like to work. But I also respect to a legend. I should do some classics. I realize now it might be a good way to show off my directing chops, because you can be these words are, I've already decided these words are good, so what's he gonna do? So I've got a few classics in mind. Well, working on a new play is great because of this experience of it's a thing now. You're trying to imagine into what it needs to be, or help it become what it needs to be, right? I think it's I don't have children yet, but I imagine it is the kind of structure and flexibility you need to let the thing become what it is. And if you're there, look, some directors are stand here, say this, blah, 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 viewpoints, walk around, do that, and on tour. And you can make great work that way as well. But I'm there sort of we're gonna co-imagine not just what it is, but what it's telling us it wants to be. And then when you find that, when you have that instinct, and we're oh, why isn't this working? And I'm oh, maybe this idea. And Sharon's I get it, but I like the other thing. That we don't know a thing that we're sure of. Sometimes you get to a point where you're this is it. but like we're trying to unpack a feeling, and then we've got a whole team of people who are willing to like try it out and show us if that future is what it wants to be. And to me, it's like I feel like I'm like playing with like, you know, celestial magic or something. You know, I'm just like, oh, this is so dope. And because it's theater, with film, and I haven't done much film, but with film, it's like you have to decide everything ahead of time and then do it on a schedule. And with theater, it's like we're all in that weird psychedelic space, sort of letting it become what it is and guiding it out. And that is dope.
Thank you, and I feel like that's also a great segue over to Liz Frankel and dramaturgy. We've had a bit of a theme of mentorship running through the season for those of you who have been in these other theater chats, and the conversation between Emily Mann and Jade King Carroll. Emily Clinic also has her mentor here this summer. It's very special. Well, Liz Frankel is my mentor, and I will keep it together. But Liz and I worked together at the Alley, on the Alley Old New Festival together. And now Liz is here, and then we worked together here on Falcon Girls, which I directed, and now here we are on Best for Baby. So this is a very joyful moment for me. But Liz has been a huge part of my understanding of dramaturgy and also my unique role in dramaturgy as a sort of director, dramaturg, hybrid human. But Liz, can you tell us a little bit about your perspective on dramaturgy? Oliver has used some words that also sort of speaks to new play dramaturgy from a director's perspective. What is new play dramaturgy from a dramaturg's perspective, and how do you see your role in this particular room?
I mean, I feel like in dramaturgy, I always see my role as just serving the playwright and being able to be sort of an expert but outside ears who's sort of able to first take in what they tell me they want, take in the script, but also take in what they tell me their goals are, what they want to be writing, what they want the audience to take away, what they want the audience to understand, and then be able to reflect back to them what I see on the page. And I feel like so often conversations, come back to sort of me being like, I hear you telling me this, but I don't know that I'm getting that off the page. And so often the playwright, I feel like this happened yesterday, like a small example, but the playwright's like, oh, that's because I had a line and I cut it, and it's like, oh, put it back. Or the playwright has the answer in their brain, they just didn't realize it wasn't on the page, or they cut that scene, and then I'm able to say, no, we really wanted that scene. So it's really just sort of reflecting back what they want, and just keeping an eye out, and making sure everything as an audience member makes sense. I feel like it's just, I feel like, the playwright knows it all, but it's just being another person to think with them sometimes. And then sometimes I feel like I work on plays where it's like there's not really much research to do, it's all quite understandable, but in this case, this has been a play that's dealing with legal issues, corporate issues, various parts of history. Sharon's done a huge amount of research, so I don't feel like I'm necessarily doing anything to help her, but I did create a dramaturgy packet to help the cast, because the actors often crave more information. I don't think anyone needs any reading or briefing to come in and watch and enjoy and appreciate this play, but so often, the cast wants more information or has a question. So I made that kind of packet, and may continue to do research or pull more things that feel useful to the team. So that can be a part of dramaturgy too.
Any interesting research in your personal life?
Well, this was an interesting play because this was a topic I'd already been thinking or knew somewhat more about than other stories I read in the news. So it's funny, when they asked me to do this is amazing because my husband is a law professor, and he had to have his first experience being an expert witness on a case in the when Johnson & Johnson tried to declare bankruptcy, to basically say we're bankrupt, so that's how we're going to handle all of these legal claims against us. He was asked to be an expert on behalf of the plaintiff's lawyers to basically testify about why they couldn't do that. So he doesn't work with anything related to cancer, that kind of litigation. He works in complex litigation, which is often a bit esoteric, but it was very exciting when he got to be an expert witness on this case that seemed really important and exciting. So I sort of went through that, hearing about it with him, and then it's been fun to get to pull that knowledge and get to ask him questions. So I got him on Zoom with Sharon.
The ultimate hookup.
Yeah, so that was useful. And then we were talking last night, and Sharon had a question, or just like, oh, I need to research. It's like, I'll just ask Teddy when I call him, and then email through some quick information at like 11:30 at night after we'd had our apart spouses chat. So
11:51 p.m.
so anyway, so that's been fun to have that connection that I can draw.
And I'm going to direct this last question from me to Kavan. Please feel free to answer this collaboratively, though, team. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit. In your bio, you're an actor, you're a performer, you're a producer, you're a director, and we have some really incredible actors in this cast who are flexing some really fascinating kind of stylistic muscles, which is also a vocabulary that is just actively being explored and exploded and developed between Sharon and Oliver and Liz also. Can you talk a little bit about how, as a director and performer, what attracts you to this piece? What has been singing out to you in the room these last couple of days? And what do you think an audience should be particularly excited or perhaps surprised by in terms of what they're going to come see from this play?
That's a really great question. I think what is exciting to me is, well, taking a step back, when I first read this play, it was, on the page, it's like challenging because it's so infuriating hearing about this topic and how this major corporation has, kind of ignored the health of some of its customers. To see it in the room with the actors advocating their point of views has been really exciting, because even we see Johnson as Justin Johnson as an embodied character advocating for their point of view, and it's fun, and you kind of love him, and you kind of love to hate him, but you love to love him as well. So having actors filling these characters and filling these point of views really just makes me want to lean forward into the story. And for me, as someone who was an actor for a long time, being able to advocate for my character and advocate for, like, hey, I wouldn't say this, or like, I feel like I am indicting myself in this moment. Having those moments to really advocate for themselves has been really exciting to watch in the room.
All right, I'm gonna do what I failed to do last week because I was just too chatty, and turn my mic over for your questions for this group of folks. So, turning to Holly. Please feel free to raise your hand. We'll come find you with the mic, so we just make sure everyone hears your question.
I want to start by saying that I grew up in Houston, Texas, and so the Alley Theater, when I was 7, my mother was worried that I was too shy. And so she signed me up for a drama class at the Alley Theater. And now you get this. But I want to know why it is, you think, advantageous to work in this setting at the Chautauqua Theater.
Okay, I'll jump in.
It's a fundraising moment.
There's a lot of answers. I think that, well, first of all, I will just say, as I'm sure all of you are aware, it is becoming increasingly hard to develop new theater in America. We've just seen so many theaters closing. We've seen so many developmental theater programs closing down. So the fact that this is here, that it has such a strong network of support, that it's growing and expanding, is just incredible. And I'm sure you are all already aware, but if you are not, it is amazing what's happening here, because it really is one of the few places in America that's expanding its program at a time when that is really necessary. And it's beautiful. God, it's so beautiful. So to be able to come here, to be surrounded by orchestra and young creative people and people who love and value culture and art, it's such a fertile place to be working on new work. You feel it, you literally feel it. And last year when I was here just writing, I was like, I like to say, as an artist, you have to be always feeding your brain. You have to be feeding your brain. And this is a place where you just can constantly feed your brain. You can go to a lecture about something you knew nothing about. So to me, I just think like what an exceptional place to be able to dream and discover and make new work. It feels really unique to me. I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in.
Yeah, I was saying I'll move it into whatever the next question is. But
Okay.
yeah, should we speak more on that, or do we want to move on to more questions? Yeah. Okay. So my mother died of Alzheimer's disease in 2019, and the whole process of that made me obsessed with sort of like how the brain works. Like I'm just sort of, it's a terrible but also a fascinating disease because you get to sort of like watch like, oh, suddenly time's gone. You know, you're like, oh, I guess that's a part of your brain. Amazing, terrifying and amazing. And then I also learned things like through the hiking and whatnot, like looking at leaves flickering, like that it makes your memory better. Like it sort of wags the dog and like triggers like things in the brain and sort of, you know, does things to your brain. I'm not a doctor, so I can't fully, stand on that. But I think about that. I think about being in an environment. Now there's leaves in a lot of places, so why here is not what makes this special. But I sometimes think about like being in that creative sort of sacred shamanistic space, right? You are heavily impacted by all of these little things around you, even just the vibe of the community. And even if I don't talk to another person, I would even hypothesize that there's like, there's sort of like open inquisitiveness that's sort of like flowing through. And we're artists, so we're like exceptionally, we're exceptionally sensitive. I say this a lot, I've done a lot of psychedelics in the last 5 years. And there's, ayahuasca is interesting because there's the DMT, which is like what makes you trip, and then there's the MAOI inhibitor, which comes from another plant, that basically extends the experience, so it's not quick. And some of the shamans actually just eat that MAOI inhibitor. It makes them very sensitive to things, like so that they say some shamans can go and like taste a plant in the garden and know its psychoactive properties because they have so much of this other substance in them. It's like an activator. So I think about that. If we are either the psychedelic substance or the shamans, I don't know, pick a metaphor, but it's like we're going into this very sensitive state. We're taking the MAOI, and then what we are surrounded by invariably influences the way we are in rehearsal, but also the kind of work that we make. So why it's special is that we are these open, very tuned in people who are manifesting and taking and letting like the energy that you are all creating like flow through us. And I think that is a great way to create. It helps to like leave home too. Sometimes I don't love it, but like it helps to be like, I'm a new person here, I go to the supermarket and I'm like, I guess I'm a guy who eats butternut squash now, like, that's who I am here, and I get to sort of imagine myself new. That action of being like, I'm a whole new person. It like allows me to sort of step out of myself, and then if I return to myself, I get to like see I get to be like, oh, wow, I guess I was a person who never ate butternut squash. What does that mean? So, I don't know. There's a little bit.
I'm trying to put that aside so I can answer.
That's what mushrooms are like. That's what taking mushrooms is like.
They do dose us before we came in.
It
Sort of understanding that more than I thought I would. We have been lucky enough in these last couple of years in Chautauqua to be in the room where it happens, watching plays go from a music stand to a full world premiere. It's such a gift to us. Those of us who were lucky enough to see a reading last year know this is a fabulous play. I want to ask on two levels, the evolution of this play from then to where we are now and where it's going. In terms of the story and the writing, how has that evolved? What did you learn last time that you're writing in this time? And also in terms of the production, how far along, how staged are we going to see this? How much do you both feel like you know how this play moves and what it looks like. So both on a story level and on a production level, where are we in the process and how did we get from there to here?
Yeah, great question. It's a lot more about butternut squash. It is a really wonderful question. I would say last year I came with a pretty good first draft and discovered I didn't know the end of the play. I discovered that here. And I had a bit of an epiphany. Well, if you all come to it, will decide if it was an epiphany, if it works or not. You'll be like, it was not an epiphany. But it felt like a bit of an epiphany for me because so much of writing this and researching this, as you were talking about, it's a frustrating thing because you want to scream a lot when you're doing the research into this play. There's been so many, for those, I'm sure many of you know about the J&J talc litigation, but if you don't know, it's really been likened to something akin to the tobacco industry. And so when you're doing the research into this play, there are just so many times when you want to scream and you just feel terrible. The saying, justice delayed is justice denied, and so many people are still waiting for justice in this case. And so I had all of that in me, all of this kind of like anger and rage and this feeling of injustice and just wanting my main characters to be able to get some justice. But it occurred to me last year when I was working on the play, like, oh, I'm the playwright. Maybe I can give them some of that justice, which was a big thought for me and kind of broke open at the end of the play. So that was something I found here, and it was really helpful. And now what we are working on, we have this actor. I don't know if you guys know George Abood. He has been on Broadway. He is incredible. Like when you see him, you'll be like, oh my God. And I want to see him in everything. Our whole cast is incredible. He's the lead and he's just incredible. And he is so smart and he's asking me all the right questions. So like I'm finding in the room with him, he'll do a monologue and he'll just in the most delightful and intelligent way, he'll just be like, but this is not actually what the character's doing, right? So to get to work with this incredibly talented, experienced cast, and have them ask me those questions is totally transforming the play yet again, I think. So that is, I love theater because of the collaboration, and so that is really what I'm getting out of this time right now. Well, maybe you want to talk about the staging.
Sure, yeah. I mean, every time you do, how many readings have you done in your life? Like hundreds, maybe? It's maybe like hundreds. And God, I even remember early in my career, like where you're there and you're like, okay, I gotta do something like really creative with the reading, and then suddenly you have all the actors like holding the music stands and you're doing this thing and it's super cringy. Or costumes, you're like, oh, and no disrespect, I like a stage reading too, where it's more, but I think everyone here knows what Uncanny Valley is. It came up like there was that movie Polar Express where like people looked they were 90, basically if animated characters are 60% real, you accept it. And if they're 100, if it's reality, you accept it. But if it's like 98% real, it feels weird. You're just like, there's something wrong. Something in your subconscious is like, no thank you. So I actually think it's important to really embrace the falseness of the reading. And I love it to like use the structure that you're in and say like, this is storytelling. I tend to, like costumes in a reading, what I've said, and this has held true for a long time, is like, I don't like it to look like the director said, wear a costume, that it's actually the actor, how they are inhabiting the character. maybe they chose to wear a button down because they're a suit person, but they're not in a costume. And I think it's important to have that kind of distance to be able to watch it and imagine it. Because I think what you're asking the audience to do is to imagine what it might be. And if there's too much stuff, or actually any stuff that is already showing it to you, you drop into that uncanny valley, and you're like, I'm competing with the thing I'm imagining. And we can't just have fun with imagining it together because I'm taking information versus projecting it. So you're gonna see a reading, and there'll be some theatricalization. You know, I think there's a lot of fun in it, but I try and really, you know, keep close eye on just how much I'm literally showing, and instead inviting people to imagine things. And maybe you'll be able to see the ways in which I'm doing that. Yeah.
Some questions over here. We probably have time for just one or two more this afternoon.
Thank you all. I'm stealing your 98% line to a
Please.
Yeah.
Take any of this. And see.
Oh, wait a minute. To apply some humans, I know. Don't want to get there. Would you talk about, because rarely do we get back with the theater review, would you talk about some of your failures? Please.
Where to start?
Sure.
Yeah, go for it. No, you go for it.
Okay, yeah, it's hard for me to, like, whether to look at, like, shows I feel like fail. So I'm gonna say it this way. For me, shows that I really feel I failed on are ones where I think I failed myself in the process. And where I didn't listen to like I did what I do in life, you know, without, you know, I was subject to the same stuff that I get stuck in life. And so it wasn't me in the rehearsal room. I didn't find a way to that kind of safety, right? I worked with a playwright, I won't be giving any names, but it just as an example of like the kind of thing that doesn't work for me. I worked with a playwright that, and it was like on an early project where like I really needed the money. It was a big check for where I was in my career. I needed it. I felt like I can't screw this up. So I put myself below, right? Not that I was put below, but like I had decided I was down here trying to like, you know, and this was a person, it was who I was referencing earlier where, you know, I would say, hey, you used the word, you know, gas station one page earlier, and then use gas station on the next page, and I think it's the same gas station, but it's not meant to be. Do you think maybe it could be, you know, car wash, or, you know, or something simple like that? And then I got like an 8-page email describing why it had to be a gas station, which for me felt like an attack, and maybe it was. Look, they got their own thing. I don't believe they're actually like, maybe with exception, like bad people, you know, but I was like, but I didn't speak up. I didn't say, okay, look, whatever this dynamic, I could see the imaginary thing between us, and it was a toxic dynamic. And instead I was like, I have to not say anything about it. Now, what I know is that actually the heart of the play may have been in that dynamic. My ability to address this and say, hey, I said one little thing, and actually it was a play that needed some cuts because people went on and on about, you know, inane little things that went on ad nauseum, and sort of, I probably us working our shit out could have gotten us to figuring out the play, but I was too scared. And so I got to the end of that, and it just, I will not work with that person again, or I will not until maybe we meet each other completely new. But it was because I didn't listen to myself, and I acted from a place of fear, and I had subsumed my presence in the face of an assumption I made about the other person. So that kind of thing, and I think ultimately the play did not work because of that.
Well, fear is a really potent thing for failure, I think, in any kind of artistic endeavor. And sometimes it's your fear, sometimes, you know, actors, no one loves so many actors, and I couldn't do it, so I have endless respect for them, but I think Oliver would probably agree, we've talked about this, I'm sure we maybe all probably agree, there's usually a point in the process, right around tech, where at least some of your actors are going to have a giant panic attack, and they probably cannot explain it to you as like, I'm just scared. Instead, they'll kind of turn on the play, or they'll turn on the director, or the writer, or they'll turn on the other cast members. And I've seen really, really wonderful actors do this. And it took me a while in my career to figure out, like, yeah, they're scared. They're just scared. Now we're done with the rehearsal. I, as the writer, get to go away, the director gets to go away, and they have to be on the stage living this thing. And that's scary. So I would say I've certainly have had some plays that I felt like, I don't know if they totally failed, but they may not have succeeded to the extent I dreamed of. In part because I had some actors who were afraid, and I was afraid of calling that out for what it was and addressing it. And I think certainly as I've gotten older and more experienced, what I have discovered is, I've discovered a few things about making theater, thankfully. I'd be really sad if I hadn't discovered anything. But what I discovered is, number one, everything is subjective. So the idea that like there is a perfect, I think when I was younger I had this idea that like there was a perfect version of my play and I just had to get to it. And maybe I failed because I didn't get to it. And I now know that's not true. The play is going to be what the play is going to be. It's going to be as good as I can make it, but there's no like perfect play out there just waiting to be discovered. So that is a really good thing to have discovered. And then also, we're all scared all the time. Part of being an artist is you just embrace that, right? You just embrace it. You say, okay, I'm scared, but I'm creating something, and I'm not going to be scared about letting it be in the world, because there's Steve Jobs had a quote that was in the Walter Isaacson book about him that I think about all the time, and he said, real artists ship, meaning you have to ship the product. If you don't ship the product, nobody knows it existed, right? And apparently he used to tell his designers that when they were getting like, no, it's not ready, it's not ready. Real artists ship. So, I think I have certainly had moments where I didn't address my own fears, or didn't adequately address the fears of my collaborators, and then the play was not, like, I think the audience can feel fear. They feel it, and so the play doesn't fly in the way that it should fly if it's being weighted down by that. Do you guys want to talk about your failures?
For me, as someone who is still in that emerging place in his career, I'm actually, and I say this now, but like really hungry for failures. If it means that I really went for what I was going for, if it means that I built up my courage muscle and really just tried. So I've failed many times, but I'm really eager to put myself out there more. And that maybe it isn't for you.
I just really want to acknowledge that we're at 1 o'clock, so if you are trying to go on to another event, please feel free to do so. And we are starting rehearsal again at 1:30, so I do want to go ahead and thank you all for being with us today, and I invite you to come and ask your question to us up here at the table, because we'd love to hear it and to get to speak with you. But please come and see Best for Baby this weekend at 6 o'clock Friday, 2 o'clock Saturday, 2 o'clock Sunday. Sharon is going to remain and sign some of her other brilliant plays, which I promise you want to read. And then, of course, our world premiere of The Witnesses runs through the 23rd. So if you haven't seen that yet, if you haven't brought a friend, please do so. And we look forward to talking back with you throughout the weekend.